We all know that triathlon is made up of swim, bike and run. But what happens if your bike fails? Would you be able to continue on the course either by pushing your bike or just by running? And would you actually make the cut-off times? In this video we explore the rules around the bike leg and exactly how fast you would have to go in order to run the distance. Before we go any further, it's probably a good point to understand what is triathlon and what does the bike leg consist of. Triathlon is made up of swim, bike and run elements over a set distance on set routes, and you have to complete them within a set time, known as cut-off times. More on that later. The order of activities in triathlon is swim, bike and run, with transitions in between in order for you to change clothing and equipment. But in order to complete a triathlon, it is assumed that you will need specific equipment. For example, a bike. The type of bike used will depend on the event that you're doing and the terrain that you're doing the event over. But typically most people will be using a bike designed to be used on the road. And now for a word from our sponsor, which is us, Life of Tri. Looking for triathlon related casual wear? Then look no further than our merch store. Whether it's hoodies or t-shirts, our custom designs will suit every athlete or supporter. To visit our store, click on the link below. Now, a triathlon can cost hundreds of pounds, thousands if you include the equipment, accommodation for the event and the cost of the event itself. So you can understand people wanting to continue their race if they have a bike failure, which is known as a mechanical, early on. But what are the rules around completing the bike course? Could you just leave the bike on the side of the course or with a spectator or even with a marshal and then run the remainder of the course? Or would you have to physically carry or push your bike? Or is it the end of your race if you cannot repair your bike in time? Now, some races will have mechanical help en route in the form of bike mechanics, but there's no guarantee that they will get to you in time to fix your bike before the cut-off times. Now, this is probably a really good point to understand the rules around triathlon and specifically what you can and can't do on the bike leg. So I spent an evening contacting various triathlon federations around the world and race organisers, and the response was typically the same. Cue my reading glasses. A competitor is not permitted to make forward progress without being in possession of the bike. If a bicycle is rendered inoperable, a participant may proceed on the cycling course, running or walking whilst pushing or carrying the bicycle, so long as the bicycle is pushed or carried in a manner not to obstruct or impede the progress of other participants. So the rules are quite clear. You need to be in possession of the bike, either carrying it or pushing it, but you can still run the course. So it comes down to how fast we would have to go in order to complete the bike leg. Now let's forget about carrying or pushing the bike for a moment. How fast would you need to go in order to complete the bike leg, and is it physically possible? Well, this will depend on the distance of triathlon you have chosen. So take Ironman for example. An Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike and a 26.2 or a marathon run. The cut-off for both the swim and the bike is 10 hours and 30 minutes. So assuming you are a good swimmer and completing the swim in roughly an hour, you would have 9.5 hours to run 112 miles. But given the world record for running 100 miles is 10 hours and 51 minutes, you're not running an Ironman course. But what about the middle distance? Or a 70.3 route. Now this would be a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike and a 13.1 mile run, so a half marathon. And the cut-off time to complete the swim and the bike is 5.5 hours. Now the world record for running 50 miles is 4 hours and 50 minutes. So again, you wouldn't have enough time to complete the swim and then the full bike course. But we're getting a little bit closer. So let's look at the Olympic distance. We have the distance of a 0.9 mile swim, a 24.9 mile bike, and a 6.2 mile run. The cut-off time for the swim and the bike would be 3 hours and 15 minutes from the start. The bike distance is just short of a marathon, so we can use that for reference, and the swim would take a good swimmer about 20 to 25 minutes. So we have about 2 hours and 50 minutes to run the bike course. Now this is achievable, but you would need to be a very good marathon runner. The average marathon time is 4 hours and 20. The world record is 2 hours and 1 minute. And generally anything under 3 hours is seen as a very good time. And finally, let's look at a sprint distance triathlon. It's a half a mile swim, a 12.4 mile bike ride and a 3.1 mile run with a cut-off of 2 hours after the start. Again, this is achievable. A good swimmer is able to complete the swim leg in about 15 minutes, giving the athlete 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete a half marathon run. Again, a very good runner would be able to complete this. However, all of this is based on a number of factors. The athlete is a very good swimmer, coming out in enough time with enough energy in order then to be able to run the bike leg. They need to be a very good runner as well in order to complete some of the distances in the times that we're talking about. And then the final factor is they need to be able to do those times pushing or carrying a bike. In conclusion, is this all possible? Could you get away with completing a triathlon just by pushing a bike? The simple answer is, for the average athlete, probably no. But if you were a very good swimmer and a very good runner, and depending on their course distance, you could in theory push your bike around the bike leg. Another question is, would you want to? Well, that's up to you. Triathletes are bloody stubborn.